Hello everyone, welcome back to Lawyers Speak. Today I, Shivansh Bansal, co-founder at Law Community, is here with Sanskriti Sanghi. She has recently done her LLM from University of Cambridge and she is now a lecturer at General Global Law School. And we are here to know more about her journey and learn from her. So my first question is, what motivated you to choose law as your career option?
Right. So I chose law as my career option for quite a few reasons. I think growing up, I kept hearing people say, oh, she speaks well, or oh, she's so argumentative. And it became a joke that, she would make a good lawyer. And I never really thought about it until I actually started reading about law in India. I started reading about what subjects you pursue as a part of the law and what you really learn. And I was somebody who was really interested in the liberal arts, but also the economics side of the subjects. Well, I think economics is a part of liberal arts. So it was that interdisciplinary study which drew me to law in the first place. And what kept me there was the idea that maybe I could wield the tool of law for some form of justice, as an aid, of course, that I would help assist or get justice for those who needed it the most, or be an aid voice to them or an assistive voice to them when they needed it the most. And that idea came from my father. He was a doctor in the army, and traveling all over the country, I really sort of imbibed that spirit that we could do more than just for our individual person. So I think that's where the idea for wielding the tool of law came from.
How was your law school experience and how much importance did you give to legal writing those days?
So my law school experience was absolutely fantastic. So after my CLAT results, I chose to go to the Gujarat National Law University for my undergraduate, which is a 5-year integrated program. Um, and I genuinely can say I can't think of one thing that I wouldn't have done across my 5 years. I spent my 5 years exploring everything possible. I didn't discard anything by presuming that it wouldn't be for me. So I tried corporate law, I tried international law, I tried domestic law, I tried courts and assistantships. I also tried all possible committees in college. If you ever spoke to anybody, from my first year to my 5th year, I was probably a part of all committees possible: DebSoc, MCC, the Center for Law and Society, Legal Aid Clinic. And towards my 4th or 5th year, I started narrowing down what I really, really enjoyed. And I think the first 3 years of experimentation helped me get there. So in terms of my professional life, my law school experience was absolutely incredible. And in terms of friends as well, I tell everybody this. People believe that law is a race and they have to be on that conveyor belt to be academic rank 1, best internships, everything. I firmly believe that in order to rejuvenate yourself and do well at law, you need to have a good enough break because it's a rigorous, rigorous field. And you need to have enough of a mindset to take on the challenges. And so I tell people to invest in friends. I tell people to invest in other co-curriculars that they like I write fiction. So I think things like that really help. So my law school experience was fantastic. Um, I gave a lot of importance to research and building my research skills in the first 2 or 3 years of my law school. So I worked alongside professors. I worked on their course outlines with them. I attended extra classes that I could and tried to take up 1 or 2 classes, research for them, prepare structures. And I spent a lot of time genuinely researching for my research papers that were submitted as internal assignments. And once I realized that I had gotten the hang of somewhat good research, I started writing in my 3rd year for blogs. I started writing for the Cambridge International Law Journal blog or the Columbia Transnational blog. And I also started writing research papers. So I gave quite a lot of time and energy to research in the first 2 or 3 years, developed my skills, and then started spending time writing. Because I think writing for the sake of writing doesn't pay off. It doesn't help anybody. It's just another article on the internet. So yeah, I think it's important to give it weight, but it's also important to understand when you should write and why you should write. And I'm still learning that myself.
My next question is, do you think co-curricular activities plays an important role in the growth of a law student?
Yeah, so I think co-curricular activities play a very important role in the growth of a person, period. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're a student, whether you're a law student, those qualifications aren't needed, in my opinion. Um, Co-curricular activities are given the term of being related to academics in a way, and they're differentiated from extracurriculars. I would go one step forward and say co-curriculars or extracurriculars, they really help you grow holistically as a person. So whether it's I don't know, debating, whether it's sports, whatever one's choice is, those become extracurriculars or co-curriculars. Those can really help you acquire the confidence, the interpersonal skills that are very essential for a lawyer. Because law, at the end of the day, is a profession, but it's also a network and it's also a passion. And you can only build that if you truly have diverse interests and activities which feed into and inform the practice of law. So yeah, I absolutely think everybody should take up at least one or two co-curriculars and extracurriculars, and not just for the CV, if you know what I mean. It has to be something that's a passion project.
What challenges were faced by you after qualifying your law degree?
So, well, I think the biggest challenge that was faced by me personally was my own expectations from myself. I'm somebody who's very, very hard on myself. I'm somebody who sets very high standards for myself, and sometimes they're very unattainable. And over the years, I've tried to dilute those standards, but it's been difficult. So, I think the biggest challenge I faced was knowing that I was heading to the University of Cambridge, and yet that fear that got hold of me of what if I'm not good enough, what if I don't do well there. And I think that's something that a little self-doubt is good for every lawyer or for every person in general, because it stops you from becoming overconfident at the trade, at profession, at life. But for me, it gets a little bit much more. It spirals off in different directions, and I think of too many things that I shouldn't. um, and to anybody else who faces the same thing, I would just say, when you get to what you choose, like I chose University of Cambridge, it turns out just all right. Because 5 years of law school is a long time, and 22 years or 21 years of life in general is a long time. So I think you learn quite a bit, and everything turns out just fine. So that was, I think, the biggest challenge I faced personally, my own anxiety, my own fear of not doing well at the next stage of my life. Yeah.
How was your LLM experience, and especially from pursuing it from abroad after LLB from India?
Right. So I've always wanted to study abroad, not because, well, it holds the idea of it's abroad, but simply because my interests lay in international law. And I thought that the best way that I could learn it would be to go to a place that really, really prioritizes the study of international law as a separate specialization in the area of law. Um, and I think University of Cambridge, because of its Law Pact Center for International Law, the focus on international law and its pro bono projects, it just became the primary choice for me to go to. So my LLM experience was really, really good. It really honed my research skills, but more than that, it really honed my questioning skills. And I think that's what every lawyer needs. Like, every lawyer needs to be able to question beyond the what happened into the why it happened, or how it happened, and who benefits, as opposed to just who's the victim in the process. So I learned a lot of that during my course. I got to take courses. So the University of Cambridge has 4 courses within the broader LLM course. I got to take courses that really honed this level of questioning. I got to be a part of extracurriculars that further brought me into contact with PhD students, other LLM students that I wasn't sharing my course with, and they raised questions to me that I wouldn't have thought on my own. So as a whole, my LLM experience was generally very, very, very good. I do think that if one really wishes to pursue a specialized area of study, it shouldn't matter what the name of the university is. It should matter who teaches it and what you think you can learn from that person. And that's why I chose the University of Cambridge. And I think a lot of people should choose a place that they think is the right fit for them and their interests. So yeah, I think it was a great experience for me.
What interests you to the field of research, especially?
Right. So, I mean, I think when I was younger, I thought of my teachers and my professors as my role models apart from my parents. And that nascent dream that I wanted to be a teacher has become so much more nuanced today. I call it me entering the line of pedagogy. And I personally believe it's not a profession anymore. The moment you become a professor or you become a teacher, it becomes a life choice because you're spending your time nurturing the next generation of whatever area those students are being taught in. So I realized that academia was the place where I could develop this skill. And so research is intricately connected to that for me. Research is about growing in conversation with other academicians, with students, young professionals. Um, and so that's why I think I was really drawn to the field of research. I was also really, really interested by it because of a professor of mine in the first year at GNLU. He's a political philosophy professor. Um, and from the first year, he asked us really difficult questions. He gave us really interesting assignments, which built us up to have those skills that I spoke to you about. And because of him, I started taking up a lot of research assistantships. My most recent one was with Professor Stuart Maslin, who's at the University of Pretoria. And I think all these experiences together brought to me the idea of being in academia, and research pedagogy are core tenets of that, alongside genuinely interacting and conversing with students and other academicians.
How did you strategize your legal career, keeping in mind your interests and all?
Yeah, so this is, I think this is an interesting question that a lot of people do ask now that I'm 5 years done or 6 years done, actually. Um, I have first years and second years asking me, how do I develop a particular interest? And I'm sure other people have different opinions on this, but my opinion has always been you won't know what your interest is until you really try it. And so I did spend a good part of my first 3 years just trying everything to truly figure out what my interest was. Um, my internships at law firms were also great. I loved the thrill of the work. I loved the adrenaline of the work. I liked being in conversation with professionals who'd been there for quite a while. But I also loved the work I did at international governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations. Um, and I started realizing that I just had to question where my work was leading. And I thought that my work had to benefit somebody greater than myself or one or two clients. And that's how, though I enjoyed my work at law firms as well, and though I enjoyed my work at NGOs or research assistantships as well, I realized that raising larger questions, be it as assistant legal counsel or as working in an NGO or working in academia, that's what interested me. So yeah, I would say that for me, my journey was very meandering till the first 3 years. I tried everything possible under the sun. I was doing online internships. I was also I was spending all my summers interning with different places. But then by the third year, I had a clearer idea of what I wanted. All my research writing was going towards international law or child rights law or human rights law, domestic as well. And I was looking only for places to intern or assist with, which did this kind of work, which was human rights related, immigration related, child rights related. So I think it's good for a law student to explore as much as possible, but set a timeline for that, because 5 years of meandering doesn't help either. So 2 or 3 years of meandering, not too bad, I would say.
Could you give us some insight on Cambridge Pro Bono project?
Sure. So it was one of the things that I had really looked forward to working with, and it was in my application as well as one of the things that I would want to take up if I was given the chance when I came to Cambridge. I think the interest developed while I was working with the GNLU Center for Law and Society, which does a lot of similar work to the Cambridge Pro Bono project. It takes up research projects under its Law and Society wing, and it also provides legal aid under its legal aid clinic. And the Cambridge Pro Bono project also takes up research projects, which it then has in collaboration with NGOs, international organizations, etc. So the Cambridge Pro Bono project that I particularly chose was the one that was headed by 2 PhD students and 1 LLM student who was also in the cohort with me. And the central question was about UK's obligations in terms of reporting and monitoring civilian deaths in foreign armed conflicts. And I was working on the human rights silo and a bit of the international humanitarian law silo. Um, and it was supposed to be a report to the Ministry of Defense on behalf of another NGO that we were working for. I think these are projects that are not just good for one's own experience. Like, I don't think it's just me who learned something out of this. It's the idea of working in a group of people who are all really committed to the cause. And you learn from people who are equally committed to the idea of what you're putting into that report. So it was really, really interesting. But I would say India is developing that really well as well. I can only speak to GNLU's experience, but I'm sure there are other law schools that are also developing research projects which go towards the idea of pro bono.
So you also volunteered for some time. Could you share your experience for the same?
Sure. So most of my volunteering was before I joined law school. I think after law school, you do inevitably, irrespective of what your opinions are, get caught somewhere on the conveyor belt. So, I mean, as part of my NGOs, I do still volunteer, but I think before school, I did spend a lot more time. So there were two projects that particularly come to mind. At Vasant School, I was involved with a project called Voice Your Choice. And Voice Your Choice was about raising voter awareness in universities in and around Delhi. So we went to Kurukshetra. We were also involved in Delhi in general. And we helped voters register for the upcoming elections and gave them information about it. And the other volunteering project was I was involved with the hospital in New Delhi. And I wasn't obviously a doctor or anybody related medically, but I would go and speak to the kids in the pediatric department or in the cancer wing. And I would speak to them. I would play board games with them. I would read stories to them, enact dramas for them. So those were the two that come to mind as long-term projects. And as part of Vasant Valley, I did also run the Salvan Marathon, in which I was an aide to a visually impaired student who really wanted to run the marathon. And I think that's one of the standout experiences of my life. I mean, the girl that I was an aide to, she taught me so much in the 4 hours that I was with her. So yeah, I think volunteering was great for me to truly understand the value of human connection.
How do you think law students and legal professionals can benefit the most out of law community? And what new initiatives would you suggest for us to introduce?
Well, I think you guys are actually doing a really great job. Like, I've looked over your website and the people you're in conversation with and the people who are heading this project. And I think you guys are doing a really good job. I think every new initiative that comes up now from younger students in the law community, in the larger law community, it's fantastic to watch because you guys have a lot more enterprise and initiative than I doubt we did. What I would think could be different is, for instance, in conversations like we're having right now, if there could be a segment where there could be a live chat, if somebody could ask their own questions, or if on Instagram or some other platform, it could earlier be aired that this is the person we're going to have as a guest. And if you have any questions, you could send them in to us. So I think that would be a good way of interacting with the larger community. Another idea that I have is something that was done at Cambridge at one of the research events that I attended, which is to give half the segment to a career in law and the other half of the segment to a presentation by the person that you've invited, whether it's on a research topic or research area of interest, or it's about how to write an SOP, what can be done, etc. And the other suggestion that I have is, I see that you've collated information about most of the important events, moot courts, MUNs, debates, etc. But I think what's lacking is a repository of lawyers who are working pro bono or legal aid clinics around the country. And I think for people for whom the law is not accessible, that's what counts the most, more than the law community. So I think it would be really interesting for somebody to compile professional networks of lawyers who are going pro bono or legal aid clinics around the country. So those are my suggestions for you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for having such an amazing interaction with us. And it will definitely gonna benefit a lot of young minds. And we are delighted to have a time with you. And law community is grateful for the same.
Thank you so much. You're being too kind, but thank you so much for inviting me.